Leaving you, obviously. I can't stay with a wretched and jobless man like you. I'm leaving with my boyfriend. He's richer than you'll ever be.
What about our baby?
Baby? There was none. I only faked that so I wouldn't have to work. I wasn't born to labor, okay?
I tried to stop her, but her boyfriend pushed me roughly, and they left. I was devastated. No job, wife, and there was never a baby. My name's Austin, and I'm aged 28. I met my ex-wife, Yvonne, about 3 years ago. Our personalities clicked, and we became friends. It progressed into a romantic relationship, and last year, we got married. Before our marriage, I worked as a cab driver. I didn't have a personal car I used, but I was registered under a company who gave out cars and expected a set amount of weekly returns. I'd been doing that way before I met Yvonne. Before our marriage, I told her about the nature of my job, and she told me she was comfortable with it.
I'm not after your money, Austin. I love you just the same way you love me, and that's all that matters.
I was happy seeing how much love she appeared to have for me. Our wedding wasn't anything grand, just a couple of friends to celebrate with us. I'm an orphan, so only her parents were the elders present. We both moved into my small apartment, and my wife seemed comfortable. Now, Yvonne didn't have a job prior. I decided to talk to her about it. To give our children a great life, we both needed to be working. That 2 months after our marriage, I called her to our living room and tabled the issue before her. Don't you think you should apply for a job? It would be easier to start a home if both of us are working. What do you think?
I think you're right, honey. It would be unfair on my part to dump it all on you. I'll start searching for a job tomorrow.
I was overjoyed and pulled her into a hug. I felt like the luckiest man alive to have married such an understanding and lovely woman. 2 weeks later, I hadn't heard any news pertaining to job hunting. I decided to ask her again.
You know how it is, Austin. It's so hard to get a job. I've been to every recommended companies, but they've always just employed someone before my arrival. It's exhausting.
I did understand her. Getting jobs were quite hard in that part of the city. I encouraged her to continue searching while we hope and pray she found one soon. However, a month after no long, I returned home after a long day, and Yvonne said she had a surprise for me. I couldn't think of anything other than she'd gotten a job, but I decided to play along. She dropped an envelope on my thighs and came to sit beside me, all smiles. My hopes went even higher. I grabbed the envelope and brought out the document in it. My smile dropped when I saw the positive result of a pregnancy test rather than an employment letter. "We're having a baby," she exclaimed, pulling my confused self into a hug. I wasn't ready for a child. I wanted us to work first before that. We agreed to work before this, Yvonne.
What? Are you talking about a job now after hearing about your wife's first pregnancy? What kind of a man are you, Austin? Not even a smile on your face.
How could I be happy knowing we're bringing a child into our home with no future plans for it?
Don't worry about that. When the baby comes, we'll sort it all out.
I couldn't argue anymore. I knew there was nothing much I could do other than to work harder. I needed to get more customers than I used to. Every day, I would work until late into the night and return home very tired. Meanwhile, my wife would sit all day at home, doing nothing. When I returned home, I'd meet the sink filled with dirty dishes, the house untidy, and dinner not ready. In my tired state, I would force myself up and do the dishes, clean the house before preparing dinner for us.
You're the best, honey. Thank you for understanding your pregnant wife and taking good care of her.
Her compliments and gratitude always pushed me to want to do things for her, despite her dirty attitude. In the 5th month of her pregnancy, things began getting hard at my workplace. They discovered some workers who secretly stole our boss's money, and after firing them, they got extra strict on us. In fact, they increased the amount we were supposed to bring in weekly. It was hard for me. I couldn't make any extra money to cater enough for my wife and growing child. When Yvonne complained about it, I explained how things were at the company.
You should work harder, darling. We need money, your child and I.
If I work harder than I'm doing now, I won't be able to return home to do the chores and prepare dinner. I said that, thinking Yvonne was going to assist me in that aspect to enable me work more. Instead, she said,
Well, work harder. Whenever you return home, you can do the chores and prepare dinner.
I was disappointed at her. but I didn't want to say anything hurtful to her. So I stood up and went into our room. I was so stressed and tired in the next weeks. I worked so hard and returned home to even more work. Eventually, I was fired. My boss ordered that every worker be fired and new ones be employed. When I returned home and told Yvonne, she freaked out.
What? You lost your job? How are we going to cope without money? What will I do without money?
I'll get another job soon, honey. I've got some savings. We could use that until I get a new job. She stormed into our bedroom angrily. I was left confused. 2 days later, I heard the doorbell ring. I stood up and went to get it. The man at the door held an unfamiliar face. Hello, I'm here to see Yvonne.
Baby, you're here!
I heard my wife's voice from inside. She brushed me aside and hugged the man. She asked him to wait a moment while she got her things. I was confused about a lot of things. My wife's pregnancy wasn't visible anymore. I didn't know who the strange man was and why she called him baby. She returned with her boxes, shocking me even more. I asked what she was doing, and she replied,
Leaving you, obviously. I can't stay with a wretched and jobless man like you. I'm leaving with my boyfriend. He's richer than you'll ever be.
What about our baby?
Baby? There was none. I only faked that so I wouldn't have to work. I wasn't born to labor, okay?
I tried to stop her, but her boyfriend pushed me roughly, and they left. I was devastated. No job, wife, and there was never a baby. I had no idea what to do with my life. To escape my harsh reality, I began drinking heavily. Every morning, I would leave my house, empty countless bottles of alcohol before staggering home, wasted. One day, I arrived at my drinking spot and took my seat. Right before I walked in, a black Jeep suddenly pulled up in front of me. I was angry, as it almost hit me. A strange man walked out and rushed to me. Austin! Oh my God, I can't believe I found you. His face did look familiar, but I had no idea where I'd seen him. He reminded me of who he was, and I immediately recognized him. 5 years ago, my wealthy father died with my younger sister in a plane crash. His greedy family sent my mother and I parking, and we had to relocate to a different country. My mother also passed away 4 years ago, leaving me all alone. The man who was my father's lawyer when he was still alive told me that my father had willed all his properties to his wife and children before he died. But since he died with my sister, everything was meant for my mother and I. The lawyer told me he's been the one managing everything while searching for my mother and I. I couldn't believe my ears. He took me to 2 of my father's companies and his mansions. Everything belongs to you, Austin. It's time to take over. I'm so glad to finally find you, he told me. In the blink of an eye, my life transformed. I became the CEO of 2 companies and had mansions of my own. Somehow, Yvonne got to hear about it. One day, she visited my office.
Honey, please forgive me. I don't know how I became so greedy, but I'm deeply sorry.
At first, I refused to forgive her. But when she continuously visited my company, crying and begging, I decided to take her back. After all, she was my wife, and I still loved her. We forgot the past and began living together. One day I returned home from work and overheard my wife discussing with her friend in the kitchen, unaware of my presence. According to her, she had no love for me and only came back for my money. In fact, she was planning to have a child for me and kill me afterward so she could take my properties. I knew I needed to make my move before her. I quietly left the house and went back to my office to plan a revenge. Once I'd gotten one, it was time for action. I sent her on a vacation to a faraway country, paid for her flight tickets, and gave her 3 empty credit cards. However, she had no idea they were empty. I paid for only 1 night at the hotel she was to stay in, but lied to her that it was covered for a week. When she arrived, she rested that day. The second day, she went out for fun. Her first stop was at an expensive boutique. She got a lot of clothes and jewelry, but when it was time to pay, the card declined. My wife was surprised. They tried the others multiple times, all to no avail. Eventually, she was sent away and all the clothes taken from her. She thought it was a mistake from their end, so she went to a spa to relax her stressed nerves. After her session, it was time to pay. The cards declined again. My wife was made to work for them the whole day to pay for her session. By the time she left, she was tired and hungry. She returned to the hotel to see her things outside. She demanded why her things were there, and they informed her that her time there had expired, and since someone else needed the room, they had no choice but to take her things out. My wife was left stranded with nowhere to sleep and no money to eat. After roaming around like an insane woman and causing trouble for a week, the authorities deported her to where she came from. She found her way back to me, but I presented her divorce papers. I threatened to make life even more unbearable for her when she refused to sign them. Eventually, she did, and I sent her packing. She went back to her boyfriend, but what she didn't know was that police had been investigating his businesses, and apparently, he was a car thief and a robber. So that same night, police broke into their house while they were sleeping and arrested both of them. She was charged as an accomplice and served 3 years behind bars. Years later, while she was out, I heard without a job or money, Yvonne had been dating random men and had contracted several STDs. I later heard Yvonne roamed around the city, sleeping in the streets and begging and stealing. A week ago, I heard she's been in jail for 6 months after stealing someone's phone. Great news, isn't it?